Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course the best medicine of them all, reflect on cherished memories, remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Grew with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with the latest and greatest of all with Grew with Portia. So, you guys, a few weeks ago, I was going through my phone, and I found the recording from the last conversation I had with my mom. And those of you who know the story about my mom making her transition, I was in the room with her, and I had the opportunity to tell her how much I loved her, how grateful I was for her keeping her foot up my butt all my life, even though it was tough. But at the same time, there was a bittersweet moment in that room because I literally watched her take her last breath. But the thing that I find gratitude in to this day, everybody, is the fact that I was given the opportunity to let her know. Where today, everybody, I am joined by an individual who did not have the same luxury as me. I'm joined by a father, an author, and someone who is now living through the legacy of his late daughter, Miss Alaina Marie Housley, who was murdered in the Borderland shooting in California in 2018. So welcome to Grew with Portia, her father, Mr. Arik Housley. Arik, it's an honor to have you today.
Oh, thanks, Portia. I appreciate you having me on.
Arik, first of all, I love to start off my conversations with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Oh gosh, you don't have enough time on the show for me to go through all of it. It's funny. I just put on one of my pods or my blog the other day. I just wrote one about being grateful and finding those things that we can be. I think I'm just grateful for every day. We're so fortunate to have this time together and to meet people and to help expand our mind. So I'm grateful for every day.
Excellent. Arik, I'm the same way, right? We're in the holiday season, and obviously for both of us, holidays look a little different because there was a tradition that we had because our person was physically here, right?
Right.
And I'm curious, Arik, for our audience who's tuning in, I'm doing this a little different than normal. Please share with our audience who Alaina was when she was here. I mean, she was 18 when she transitioned, but tell us who she was, the years that you spent with her as her father.
It's funny. After losing Elena, there were things that really showed us of who she was. Like she was always that very kind. Like every time I'd be sitting on the couch, even if it was like a hot summer night, she'd sit down right next to me, like on my shoulder, and have her head on my shoulder. And finally, I'd have to turn and go, Elena, I love you, but it is so hot in here. Like, and she's like, okay, daddy, like, and just move over, whatever. Um, Avid reader. My joke is, especially after finishing writing my book, was my son goes, "You wrote a book I didn't even know you read." Ha, ha ha. And Elena was the one. I'd be out working in the yard, and she'd go, "Oh, I finished my book. Do you need a hand?" And I go, "Wait, didn't you start that yesterday?" She goes, "Oh yeah." I mean, it was like a book a weekend type of a person. Um, we encouraged her to go out that night. She was a nerd. We're like, will you please go out and have fun and go to a borderline, like go dancing, do whatever. And because you're a college student, you're supposed to enjoy it a little bit too. So just all she was super present. Ironically, after some of the things that we noticed was she was that kid that wanted to she was distraught because she had three parties she was invited to for birthday parties when she was 13, right? And she's like, but all three of them are at the same time. And I'm like, well, you can't go to all three, so you're gonna have to choose one, right? That was but for her, she was very upset because these were her friends. And so she was very present. And after her passing, it made me realize, like, gosh, was she aware that her time here was really limited? And because of that, that's why she didn't want to miss any opportunity. She was, that whole FOMO of of everything. Like she wanted to do everything and see everything and be everything. And then even quotes in her room talked about, life is short. Love the ones that like keep people close. Things that were written on her wall, right?
Eric, I love how you brought up about the hot summer. Like, hey, I want to sit next to dad today. It's like, I'm surprised, Eric, you probably wanted to have like an IV under your arm to keep your deodorant going. Cause if it's hot, like I'm thinking, depending on
It's
what part of Cali you're in.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, it's we're in the Napa Valley. It's not crazy most of the year. There will get some hot days, but I just run hot all the time. I'm like, I'm always warm. So, then you put another body next to you and you're like, okay, it's warm here. I love you. Can you scoot over a little bit? But yeah, no, it's funny.
Freeroastshow.com is how I look at it. I mean, just go ahead and roast like how people would put what eggs on their car hoods to cook them in the desert and stuff. I mean, that's essentially what you got from Elena, right? Like, here's love, but also I'm roasting you. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
Eric, you brought up something, and we were talking a little bit before we started today about the day of Elena's transition.
Mhm.
And you talked about how you encouraged her, look, go out, be young, have fun, right? And I brought up in the beginning how I was given the opportunity to let my mother know how I
Mhm.
felt about her. And I'm curious, Eric, when you think back to that day in 2018, do you remember the last words that you told her before she went out the door?
We didn't speak to her that evening. So she was at Pepperdine University. She was a freshman. We are in Northern California, about 6, 7 hours north. And so we spoke to her kind of earlier in the day, I believe, or even in text message. The last time I actually spoke to her was the night before. We were on FaceTime, and just like finally I was like, Lena, I love you, I'm falling asleep, like here's your
Oh,
mom, like because we would just be chatting. And she had gone through some tough moments at school, and tough for typical students, right? She didn't get the sorority she was hoping to get. She didn't get into the choir she was wanting to get into. But then the week before, she got into the Florence program for international studies, which is where she wanted to go, and she got on the mock trial team, which is what she wanted to do. And then that night of the mock trial, it was their first kind of team meeting, and she went in and she had, like, I guess the teacher or the advisor, her story was, I walked into the room and there's the pro and the con, and on whichever side, one of them was just like filled to the hilt, like if they had spent a whole bunch of time on it. And so she walks in, she sees the captain. She's like, Who's been working on that?" They're like, "The new freshman girl, Elena." And she goes, "Oh, you got a future team captain here," like of how into it she was. And she did really well. And so it was just funny to see like how like engaged she was when she was there. So that night she ended up having dinner at one of my fraternity brothers' homes. He was a religion professor on campus. Pepperdine's a Church of Christ affiliated school, so they have convocation every week. And one of the options is like like private settings with. So there was, I think, 15, all juniors and seniors, except Elena was the only freshman. And she would go there every week, and then so they all had said, "Oh my gosh, you got to go out dancing, we've all done it, it's so much fun." And so there was guilt from some of them when we got a chance to meet them, because they were like, "Well, we told her to go," and we were like, "But we don't blame you for that. Like, she was doing what she should be doing. She's a college student. She should be enjoying herself, right?" My wife used the phrase one time, she was in the right place at the right time when evil walked in. And that's where we kind of look at it that way. There's really nobody to blame in that, that we can. And we could even blame the shooter, which we we don't necessarily. I mean, he was in a place where, in a very bad place in that way. The forgiveness is something that's really set us free. Um, but yeah, for Elena, we encouraged her to go out. We had been encouraging her for weeks to go out and do something, and just go out and enjoy it a little bit. And sometimes that's hard.
oh, I agree. I mean, it sounds to me like both you and your wife are like, look, you're young, go have fun. I'm putting my trust in you being responsible. And I mean, it sounds like Elena was very driven. I mean,
Yeah.
just a go-getter beyond her time with her being so
Yeah.
young and, all the aspirations and all the things. And I'm curious, Arik, too. You brought up about you and your wife, right? And forgiveness being that band-aid to help set both of you free from, holding on to so much hurt, guilt, all the things. And I'm curious, Arik, what did it take for you and your wife to come together to work with your grief and not grow apart? Where I've seen some families
Mhm.
where, spouses have their own grief journeys and sometimes they end up divorced.
I've been amazed at how many people post losing Elena have come forward that had also lost children or grandchildren or, somebody very close to them. And don't get me started on the ones that come up and go, I know how you feel. I lost my dog last week. I'm like, oh, wow. Not that it's not grief, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I don't know that you know how I feel. So I always tell people, I'm like, do not ever say, even if you lost a child to gun violence, I know you don't know how I feel. I don't know how my wife feels. I know how it feels to lose someone, but you don't know how I feel, especially right now, right? Um, for us, for Hannah and I've met so many people that have lost children, and one of them came to me that I'd known for years, and he turns to me and he goes, "Hey, I don't know if you know my story, but I lost my daughter to a drunk driving accident." And my wife and I 10 years later got divorced. She was so into the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, it was just too much. And I needed to be able to free myself of that. Like, I still love my daughter, I miss my daughter, but I just couldn't keep doing it, and everything was about the next rally, the next event. And so they ended up divorcing, and he'd been remarried down the road, and I'm kind of a believer in, like, and I struggle with God has a plan, because, knowing how Elena went in that way, yet I look at it and go, like, but maybe he's in control of this organized chaos we call Earth, right? Or whatever, however we want to look at it. Um, but for Hannah and I, it's really driven us together, and our son too. We're very close. Every time we leave Alex, he's a student in England going to university. Every time we leave, one of us is in tears, and he and I always joke around about who's going to get allergies first. So we call him, we're like, oh, allergies in this airport, so it becomes kind of a joke for us. Yet the thing that I did most importantly after was listen. Hannah looked at me. So we were on national news because of my brother. My brother used to be in television news forever. My sister-in-law is an actress. And so we were on, I believe, CBS, and pardon if I'm wrong, but CBS News, like national, like 2 days after the shooting. So shooting was on Wednesday night, Sunday. So on Sunday, we were on this national network show, and they had come here and doing the interview. And I just turned and I was like, mark my words, Elena's voice will be heard. And I didn't even know what I said and why that meant that, right? And so I started coming out like, okay, how can we do this? And like, how can we like start to create change? Families should not be going through this. Children should be able to go to schools. Like, people should be able to go to church and worship, no matter what that synagogue or whatever that looks like. We should be able to have those things without worrying that somebody's going to walk into Nevada, buy an assault rifle over the counter, and then turn around and go kill 9, 10, 12 people, or attempt to. And the one thing we've always kind of said is, this is really not about, for us, it's not really a gun debate. It's hate. And there's so much deeper. Timothy McVeigh didn't need a gun to kill 250 some odd people at the Oklahoma Federal Building. He filled his car with fertilizer, right? So I think for us, Hannah looked at me early on, and the thing I learned was to listen. She looked at me and she goes, I need you to slow down. Like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I need you to be present. And she became very introspective in her journey, where she's extremely deliberate, almost annoyingly, and I joke around with her about it. Like, even on a text message, if she's going to send you, Portia, if you guys were friends and she's sending you a text message, if she were to turn, she'd be like erasing it and writing it like so. I'm like, it's a text message, just send it. Like, it's not that big of a deal, especially when it's not like an important one. If you don't want it, if it's important, fine, make the phone call. Don't send it in text. but she's very deliberate about her words. And for me, I can, I'm happy to do it. If I make a mistake, say, I apologize, Portia, that wasn't the way it was intended. Here's what I was trying to say. But for her, she's extremely deliberate about the words she uses. So I saw that and heard her ask me to, like, we need to slow down a little bit. And so I respected that. And that was huge. If I were to give anybody advice, it's, if you are going to do it, you have to listen to one another of what you need in that relationship, because the relationship's different now, and moving forward it will be different forever, because you're both balancing a huge, a huge piece in your life, and trying to figure that out.
Eric, I love how you brought up that God has a plan because I run grief groups locally. And I love how my participants will tell me the different platitudes, right, that people will say to them, right? Some of them have lost children by means of suicide, right? Or
Mhm,
others by natural causes.
mhm,
And they'll say to me, like, I'm so tired of hearing that God has a plan, right? You're not
mhm,
ready to hear that. You have to reach a
mhm,
level of acceptance for yourself. And
mhm,
I'm curious for you, Eric, from the standpoint of a parent. I also love how you brought up too that the I understand,
mhm,
right? Even though we've experienced a loss, that's the common denominator. Our
mhm.
way of interpreting that loss is different. And how can you encourage other parents, Eric, to be mindful of what they're saying and also really take into account their own grief journey as far as how they're going about it and being open to going on their own path and really
Mhm,
taking in the difference,
mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. I guess, and I just recently put a blog out on that too, is there's ways, things to kind of avoid, certain comments to avoid. One of them that I suggest too to avoid, especially in the beginning, is, she's in a better place. Like, God has bigger plans for her. Those are things that are, like, paved with good intentions, right? But not everybody's ready for that right now. And it's hard because, from my standpoint, I get extra leeway that could be unfair, but if you want to be in my shoes instead, we can switch places. That's fine. But I get to say things to people that others don't without getting response. So if I turn to you, Portia, and you didn't know my story, and I said, how you doing? A lot of times those people that are still raw in it, with their response is, well, how do you effing think I'm doing? You
Right.
know, but because when someone knows my story, I say, how are you doing? You're like, oh gosh, you know how it feels to just be in this fog right now, right? I ask the same question with the same inflection, but I get extra room because they know I can relate. And we're in this club together, sadly, that they understand that I understand grief, the nth degree. My suggestion for people is, one of my pet peeves, and I don't know why, is there are no words. I'm like, if there's no words, then don't even say there's no words, right? Like, just don't say it. I always had just appreciated somebody making eye contact and just, giving me a nod or something, or, thinking about you guys, you know, love you guys, or, like, um, something simple. There's a lot of people that are in their grief journey that it's like, I want them to know Alaina. I want them to know who she was. And that's their journey. And I can respect that. For me, frequently when I'm on a podcast or something, people mispronounce the name, or, like her name, call her Alina, Alana. And that stuff doesn't bother me, because she'll live with us forever. She's a piece of us forever, right? So it's my suggestion for people is, tread lightly when doing it, and then don't take it on both sides. One, I'm convinced that 100% of the people, and I shouldn't say 100%, there's always some whack job, like, but because I mean, we got conspiracy letters that it didn't even happen, right? But let's say 100% of normal people, their intention is to say something in kindness. Is so, even if they're like, even the person who said, oh gosh, I know how you feel. I lost my dog last week. She's trying to relate to show, I care about you and I feel your pain. And she doesn't feel my pain, but at the same time, I know what she's trying to do. So I didn't take offense to it. Even people saying, "Oh, I'd like to drop off some food." Sure, we've got a mountain in the fridge, but I just turn around and go, okay, like, thank you so much, because they want to do something. On the side of the people giving, I say give, and then don't expect any response that you're expecting, because you just don't know where they're at. So take them food and just say, hey, just wanted to drop this off. If you don't want it, I'll take it back right now. Do not take offense to that. You don't know if they're like, oh my gosh, my kitchen has food everywhere. I don't even know where to put it. Um, Even the comment of, if there's anything you need, they asked me that. So we had just been informed. We went to Pepperdine. We were surrounded by people. We didn't know what's going on. Are we going back today? Are we not? Are we, like, what's happening? Do we need to go back to Thousand Oaks to identify the body? We had no idea what was happening. And a woman came up. She goes, I think you're going to stay at the chancellor's house. Like, they're going to put you up in one of the homes here tonight, because you have a lot of people here that have come to be with you guys. What would you like us to put in the fridge? And I'm like, I have no idea. And I go, bananas and water. Am I here an hour or a week? Like, I have no idea. She goes, you know what? I'm just going to fill the fridge, and whatever you want, like, whatever you need. I just can't do alcohol. I said, that's fine, because, university credit card, whatever. I said, we can get that on our own. We'll get wine on our own. I'll send one of my friends, right? Um, and and then she just filled the fridge. And those are the things to me that are really important. Just do for people. A wonderful, and sorry to babble, but a wonderful one that a friend of mine told me about that I try to do now is, they send a message and say, I'm in my car, I'm at your curb, I have my laptop and my phone. I don't need anything. I just want you to know I'm here. If you'd like me to come do the laundry, do the dishes, go for a walk, you want somebody to talk. And if not, just know I'm close and I care about you. Done. You don't have to tell them, please tell me what you need. If they go, oh my gosh, could you come inside? Or if they come out to the car, great. Like, let them decide to engage. But if not, play Sudoku on your phone for an hour and a half. Like, you send some emails and hotspot your laptop if you need to. But that message of you being there and caring enough to actually do that is such a better message that resonates, to somebody. And they might just want this. There's a woman now I'm speaking to quite a bit, who just lost her daughter recently, and like 2 weeks ago, very tragically. And she said, like, I'm needing to grieve, and some people they keep showing up, and I need the space. And I'm also saying, you do need the space, but you also don't need the isolation too much as well. Like, don't go down that dark hole that you can go if you isolate too long. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Because you're right. That's the duality, right, in the grief journey. Where, yeah, you want your solitude to grieve on your own, however that looks, but also you need that community of
Right.
people who can be there for you, let you cry, let you scream, and not judge you. Right?
Yes.
They're there to love you unconditionally.
100%.
So
Yeah.
I 100% get that. And, Arik, first of all, lots of gratitude to you for coming on today and sharing with our audience from a father's perspective of losing a child, especially by murder, and, the what ifs, right? All
Mhm.
the questions, and also choosing the route of forgiveness. Before we conclude today, I want to definitely make sure that our audience is aware that you also are a new author of the book, Always November: Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. So, for our
Correct.
audience, Arik, I'm curious, Arik, how did you come up with the title? And the reason why I asked that is because I know Alaina was murdered in November. So I was
Yes.
curious, is there, kind of, how did you decide on that title,
Mhm.
considering that it, is kind of that hole in your heart for the rest of your life?
Yeah, it was one of those things that came up in a chat with my writing coach, where we were trying to decide on the title. And one of the chapters I wrote was Always November. And it was kind of the chapter that we had decided that maybe this is the concluding chapter once we kind of read it and what it was doing. And the whole premise is, every year, kind of mid-October comes around, and it's like, okay, like that anniversary of her murder is coming up, and there's a solitude that we have. There's a sadness that comes over us, but also a gratitude all in the same time, that we have, it's really taught us how much we love, and so and loved her and still do, that every November we go away for a few days and we spend some time together at the coast. We take our dog with us and we just kind of go out by the ocean and such, just to kind of be present. We try to turn off the technology, like we'll watch movies or something, but we'll just kind of go visit and be. But every November, again, like similar to you at the time when you've lost your mother, there's always that time of year where it's like, hey, this
Hmm.
is about when, I lost mom and I really miss her and I'm thinking about her. And while you can be grateful and appreciative and feel blessed of the times you did have, there's also the part that you miss them, right? And so every November this happens. And so for us, we believe we were, and don't get me wrong, this has been a tough journey in my faith. My wife's a very strong Catholic, and for me, I have a very different kind of worldview. But I think understanding that faith and religion, I had to learn faith and religion weren't the same. I used to think they were the same, and while they're correlated, they're also very different, right? Um, so it's one of those things to really understand your journey and be appreciative of the time that we have, because it's, nothing's guaranteed, right? So lessons in loss, love, and resilience is our lesson of our loss, how much we loved, and the resilience it has been to continue to move forward. So it was kind of a subtitle that just kind of fell in, kind of very naturally.
I love it, Eric. I mean, I know for some people that may be a hard correlation, right? Because that's the anniversary of the transition.
Hmm.
So it's, some may not want to have that quote unquote memory attached, but I love
Hmm.
the incorporation of it because
Hmm.
you've turned it around to make it memorable, right? The
Hmm.
lessons of the love that's still present, right? The
Right.
loss that has occurred, and also this journey of faith, right? Whether
Hmm.
it's questioning or still just following it, right?
Hmm.
So I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. Eric, for our audience who's tuning in, I'm sure there's going to be other parents who want to connect with you, who have
Uh-huh.
experienced the transition of a child, or if they want you to come and speak and also get a copy of your book. How can our audience connect with you today?
Well, real quick, one thing I will say is I love that you use the term transition, because the one thing, and it'll talk a little bit about in the book, is they're not here in body, but they are here in spirit. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
been too many things that have happened, too many signs that have happened that blew my mind, that,
Share
and
one. Share one.
so I reluctantly was put in touch with a medium, and I was like, okay, I'm pretty skeptical of that stuff. And there was this bird that had kind of sat on our wire right by our bedroom door, and when I opened the blinds, didn't move for like all day long. This one bluebird just sat there. So I ended up talking to this medium, and she says, "Oh, I'm not evidential. I'm not this, and I'm not that." And I said, "Okay." And then she says, at the end, she goes, "Elena says you're skeptical." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I am. Like you're telling me stuff that maybe you saw on Facebook. I don't know." And she says, she's telling me that there's a manila envelope. And I said, "Okay." She says, "But I keep asking her what's on the letter." And I said, "Okay." And she says, "Does that make sense to you?" And I said, "Not at all." She goes, "It's on a skinny table, like a hall table, or like, like an end table or something." She goes, "It's not like not a kitchen table, but it's something skinny." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Does that make sense?" And I go, "Not at all." And that day I got home about 3 hours later, and there's a manila envelope, and I'll share you the picture, Portia, so you can check it out. There's a manila envelope sitting on this little hallway table that we have. And it had in it, it had 5 bracelets from Sergeant Ron Helis, the officer that lost his life in the shooting with Elena. But in the envelope had no note of here's the because I had asked him to as a gift for some other people for a long story. Instead of, "Hey, here's the bracelets you asked for," or anything, it was just 5 bracelets in an envelope. And the woman kept saying, "What's on the letter, not what's in the envelope." And she said, "Elena's just sitting here smiling at me sarcastically, like if I'm asking the wrong, like I don't know, like you know what I mean." And so that day I just looked and I go, when I spoke to my therapist after that, I go, what is happening? He goes, well, whether she's communicating with Alaina or reading your mind, even though that hadn't happened yet, she goes, it just proves there's a lot we don't know. So so I learned in my life is everything before I had to sense it to know it was here. And so my struggle with God and faith and religion was if I couldn't touch, feel, taste, or see, it didn't, it was hard for me to wrap my head around it because it wasn't tangible. And now I look at it and go, just because we can't sense it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so that was kind of my journey in that piece. So, and lots of other signs that happen that are in the book too. But to answer your question, arikhousley.com, it's ARIK Housley.com. And you can look it up, ARIK Housley or Always November on Amazon. We got a #1 new release the first day out, and then also bestseller in multiple categories. So we're really excited about that. Way more sales than I expected. I think as a man talking about grief, that's been a big thing for people because a lot of men, I'm surprised at how many have reached out to me and have shown appreciation that we're talking about it because it's real. Um, so yeah, my arikhousley.com, there's contact to get a hold of me for my speaking engagements or to come and do workshops or things. So yeah, I really appreciate the time, Portia. It's been great.
Arik, what an honor to have you and to share Alaina's legacy. Keep going. Again, congrats on the Amazon accolades, #1 bestseller. That's what a lot of people aspire. So continue on this road to help other parents, to keep Alaina's memory alive, and also to continue to help other people to work to integrate their grief. Well, everybody, that was Mr. Arik Housley, Alaina's father, that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia, everybody. And until next time, peace and hair grease, everyone.